All right, we are recording. How are you,
Excellent.
Shams?
Good, good. How are you, Geerish?
I'm doing great.
Great. That's
Yeah.
exciting. I'm excited to start our journey down the eightfold path with the
Mm.
first fold. I don't know when the first, what would you call it?
I don't know. We can call it anything we want to call it.
Okay,
Let's say the first
teaching,
aspect.
the first aspect. That's a good word.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
the first aspect of the eightfold path.
Some people visualize it as a wheel, and they're like 8 cogs in the wheel.
Oh, I've seen that imagery. Yes, so that's what that's referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Okay, cool. They're already learning something. Nice.
But I think the teaching behind it, the essence is the most important thing. You can give it any form, isn't it?
Fair enough. Yeah,
In
that's
your
true.
mind.
They're just ways to help you remember or connect with it. I think having like a visual helps to make things and easier to remember. And also sometimes metaphors stick in the mind. I think that's also stories. Like a metaphor is kind of like a small story. Like the stories we tell at you tell at the beginning of each of these. It helps the mind remember the concepts a lot more easily without having to just memorize it. So
exactly.
yeah, but like of course, like you're saying, whatever the heart of the teaching, the aspect, whatever you want to call it, is really the important thing, regardless of what you call it.
Exactly.
Cool.
So shall we start with the story itself?
I was wondering if there would be a story. All right, good. I'm excited. Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to stop the story thing. I think it's very cool.
I'm always amazed. I'm like, when is this guy gonna run out of stories? So I'm very happy that you've always got one more.
Yeah, if one day we run out, we're going to make up our own stories.
That I would love to see what you come up with. I look forward to that day, actually. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's start with the story. And then we'll introduce the first aspect. Cool. So in the story, we have the Buddha himself. Okay, the original Buddha, Gautama, let's say. So he was sitting under a tree, okay, and giving his discourse, talking to the Zen, to the Buddhist monks, let's say, about something, okay. And while he was talking to them, there was an angry man who came, so rushed towards Gautama, and then he spat on his face. Okay. Spat on his face and then said, "You're a cheater, you're this, you're that," and all the nasty things. And then what the Buddha did was that he said, "Okay, what next?" Okay, so when he said what next, the person got confused for a moment, because usually you expect two reactions from that situation, okay? Or that the person gets very angry and then there's a fight which starts. I would say that's 80% of cases, maybe. Otherwise, the person don't want to get into a fight, so the person will, try to get out of the situation, maybe hide or move out, but not do the confrontation, right? So usually we have two possible responses, which we'll most likely see in this case, but
like
the Buddha did none. Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah, exactly what you said, fight or flight, right? You fight it, or if you can't fight the oppressor, you run away.
Yeah.
So the old part of the brain usually. But the Buddha was beyond that. He said, "What next?" And what does he really mean by that? It's confusing. So the man got confused and just moved out angrily and left. But while the person was abusing the Buddha verbally, let's say, his disciples got very angry and said, "That's not acceptable. You can't do that. And if we let this man abuse the teacher, anyone else will do it afterwards, because, it happened once, it can happen again." So they got very angry. But the Buddha said, "No, you calm down. You don't speak." Okay, so he calmed his own people down and asked the other guy, okay, what next? But the guy got confused and then went away. All right. And after that, the guy went away. Then he talked to his people, let's say. He said, I know you got angry, but if you think deeply about it, okay, if you think deeply about it, the man doesn't know me. So he probably heard something about me, that I'm a cheat, I trick people, and I'm trying to, let's say, start a cult and make people come towards me and forget their duties. Maybe he heard those things. So he was angry about that idea of me. He doesn't know me. So in a way, when he spat on me physically, he's kind of spitting on his own idea. So he's spitting on his mind. He's not spitting on me. So that's how the Buddha viewed the situation.
So interesting. I think it's so true that we react to our ideas or interpretations about things, not the things themselves. That's such a profound truth, and such a way of almost, to use the word liberation, which I don't know what the original, I guess Sanskrit, most of the Buddhist texts are. Is that the language?
Yeah, they were written in Sanskrit, then the Pali. Yeah.
But you hear liberation a lot in the translations or when people talk about that. So I don't know. I'd be really curious. That would be another great episode for us to do, is to look at some of the original words that are used in Sanskrit and kind of like learn more about them versus the translations that are often used in English. But to liberate yourself from your own emotional reactions to things is first to notice that you're reacting to your thoughts about the thing, not the thing itself. And that's there's a lot more you can mold there, because it's your thoughts about it. You can change your thought about it and have a different reaction potentially.
Yeah.
Which is what the Buddha did in this, had a very different thought than his disciples. And so his reaction was very different.
True. And he continues his conversation, and it's very interesting the way the conversation continues.
Okay.
Because he elaborates on it a bit more and says that, I'm kind of disappointed with you guys, though. Okay. He says that to his disciples. He says, I'm disappointed with you guys because you guys know me. Okay. And you know me and you know how I would react. So why are you getting hyped up about that? So the guy doesn't know me here. So he's getting angry, but why are you guys getting angry about it? So I think maybe he was expecting them to be as wise as him also. Not as, but better than that reaction, let's say. Maybe that's why he said that. And now this story has been told in different ways. There's another story which resembles the one I'm telling you, and the Buddha gives another speech. So maybe it's good we explore the other version also. Okay. So in another version, which you may find online if you Google, in another version, he says something like, if a man gives you a gift, all right, and you don't accept the gift, so the gift belongs to whom?
That's interesting. That's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
I guess the gift belongs to no one.
So let's say I'm giving you a gift, Shams.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a gift and you don't accept it. So the gift belongs to whom?
I mean, then it gets the person who is giving it.
Exactly. So so he said that to use an analogy, let's say, for the anger thing. So I'm super angry. I'm giving you all that dark stuff.
Oh, wow.
Okay? If you don't accept it, it stays with me, isn't it? If you react, you're trapped. Then you're accepting the anger, and it's making you angry now.
That's true.
Yeah. I like that other version also. It's cool.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's so it makes it makes so much sense when you explain it like that.
Yeah.
Truly. That's
So
a very interesting story.
mhm.
What do you think it means? Because the one thing that's also interesting is that he says, "What's next?" I
Yeah,
found
what's
that
next?
sticking out to me
Okay,
as like,
he elaborates on that more in the
hmm,
okay. When I say original text, we don't really know, because the way Buddhism has been taught was that it was oral. Okay, there were no
okay,
books, so it was just told, and then after many years, people started to write about it. So how much is that authentic?
yeah, you
We
always have
don't
to
know,
wonder.
but
Hmm.
there's enough evidence from historians that there's enough evidence to confirm that the Buddha did exist. Okay,
Oh,
so there
interesting.
was a
Okay.
guy, Gautama did exist. He was a prince
Mm.
and all that. Um, so this is true. But
Mm.
how much mysticism is there in the stories? We don't know. We don't know
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Fair enough. Fair
but we
enough.
know he was a great teacher. His wisdom is powerful.
I mean, if it stuck around this long,
Exactly.
you gotta think that there's something to it, like
Exactly.
not
Exactly.
many. I'm sure there are a lot of fun little stories that or that also existed around his time, and other people teaching stuff, and their stuff's not around. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you gotta consider that something lasts thousands of years. I imagine there's something very deep and profound
Mm-hmm.
and rooted in truth about it. So, but then the other thing too is like, okay, sometimes that can get shrouded or covered or twisted or little like
Yeah.
alterations and
True.
stuff.
True.
Um, but I think the heart of it usually is what sticks at least. So you're saying that there's a version or there's an explanation for the what's
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. It goes on the story. It's not that
Hmm.
straightforward, this one. So he
Okay.
kept. So he asked what next because he was not being cheeky. He was not playing
Okay.
a mind game. Okay, he was not
Oh,
doing
because
that.
it kind of does sound like a little.
Yeah, it does sound. It does sound like a mind game, and it's. I would play it as a mind game actually.
Mm-hmm.
If it
Okay.
was me, I'm not as wise as Gautama. Okay,
Sure.
I mean, I do think about the things, but if you're coming with, if someone is coming for a fight, I'm ready for the fight. Not physical, but the mental game. I would play it actually. So if someone, let's say something nasty to me, I won't react, but I would say, okay, what next? Do you have more to say? So
Yeah.
I will actually play that game. But the
Okay.
Buddha was not doing that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So he asked what next because he explained that in his discourse with the other Zen guys, let's say. So he tells them that for human beings, sometimes words are not enough. Words are not enough when you need to express something very deep, something intense. Okay. So sometimes when you need to express something intense, words are not enough. Then you need to do something. And let's say you're very angry. You can't express your anger with just words. Possibly people need to smash something to just show how much angry they are. Okay, so that's what the Buddha was explaining. And sometimes people hit each other, which is not cool, but it happens. So it's a way of showing anger, and there's something wrong in me. That's why I'm doing this, And I'm thinking possibly that's why people maybe cut themselves when they are in deep pain or agony, isn't it? It's a sort of self-harm. I mean, there's something wrong. That's why the people are doing this to them, okay? And expressing that pain is not enough. They need to do something physical. Okay, so that's what the Buddha was trying to explain. So the person spat because the intensity is too much. He had to do something. Okay, so sometimes words are not enough, and it's the same with with expressing intense emotions, let's say. So here we're talking about anger, but for people to express, let's say, let's talk about something more light, something more warm. let's say people need to express love. You can't just say bad words, you know, you love someone. There needs to be like a certain level of touching, holding hands, or hug, you know. So people need to express it in a physical way. So that's what the Buddha was trying to say with intense emotions. All right. And that was his explanation. So the Buddha said, okay, what next? So do you have something more to express? That's what he was aiming at, because he was trying to understand where the person is coming from. And I think this is very important again. And I think we touched on it when we were talking about, I think, suffering or conflict. And I was telling you something personal. And I was telling you that, okay, if someone is very mad at me, I'll try to understand, okay, why are you really mad? Instead of getting into that game of, okay, you hit me, I hit you with words, you know, and let's see how far it goes. Instead of doing that, maybe the intent is, okay, did I do something? That's why you're being aggressive, let's say. You try to understand, because if you really care, you usually try to understand instead of playing that game and going to that level. Because when you go to that level, sometimes there's no going out. It just gets worse and worse. And you see that with conflict, sometimes starting with verbal and it gets physical and there's no end to it. So trying to understand is crucial in conflict resolution, let's say. Does that not sound as conflict resolution? Okay, why are you really reacting that way? So if you have someone upset at work, let's say, and the person says something which doesn't sound okay, instead of feeling insulted, maybe you need to talk to that person and say, hey, is everything fine? You're not reacting in a normal way. Do you want to talk about it? Maybe that will just resolve the things.
Okay. Potentially, if you're lucky.
Potentially, yeah. I'm not saying things get solved that way.
Yeah. In an ideal world.
We did talk about that. Let's say you try to calm things down and then the person stabs again. Then you know, no, there's something wrong here. The person is actually looking for a fight. Then you need to move out. But I think it's a good reflex to have.
True. No, it's a beautiful, I think it's a great place to start. My personal experience and thoughts about that kind of thing is that usually when people are in a heightened emotional state, angry or upset or scared, it's very difficult to have a clear-minded conversation. So even if you ask, like, well, what is it that made you, like, that caused you to be upset? You might not get the real answer, or you might, even if you do get the answer, it'll still be filled with hostility. Or even if you try to apologize, you know what I mean? Like, there's a certain, and apparently neurologically, certain parts of the mind don't, like the prefrontal cortex doesn't get as much blood or as much, you know, fuel when you're in that kind of angry, aroused state, because it goes more into that fight or flight side of your biology. So I found that a lot of times, you know, I think you're right, asking the question and, you know, trying to, but then if you notice, like you're saying, that you're not getting, then it's better if you can just kind of both cool down and then discuss it later when the emotions are on a less intense level or calmed down. So yeah, but yeah, no, definitely good question to ask, or good way to approach it.
No,
that's why I say ideally.
Yeah,
it hasn't been my practical
you can't
experience.
try, you don't know whether it will work.
Yeah, true.
But it's something to think about, I would say.
And you can only control your own actions. I think we've talked about that before, where it's like you're responsible for the way you behave, right? And then what the other person, how they interpret it, like the story of the man who was brought the baby and was blamed on things, like everyone else's reactions and what they think, what they do, that's out of your control. You can just behave in a way that's in line with your beliefs of how you want to carry yourself, or your choice in that way matter.
Exactly. And it comes down to something we mentioned before, which is the right intent. So if you know that your intent was good, okay, and then you don't need to beat yourself to it. Because one thing I've realized is that you may have the right intent the whole time. That doesn't mean that you're going to have the right results the whole time. Sometimes with the right intent, things do mess up, and you end up questioning, but is it worth having the right intent because it's not working the way it should be working? But that's I think that's because we think, if we have the right intent, it will lead to the right outcomes, but it doesn't really work like that in real life. But is it really worth to have the right intent even if it doesn't work? So that's how the mind starts to play it in your head. Then you can say, no, then I'll just be a cynical and selfish person because it doesn't work out anyway to be nice. So it's tricky. And I think I wrote about that because a few days ago I wrote on the philosophy of the Star Wars.
Oh, where did you write
that link?
I'll send you that link. Do. Okay. Yeah. I think Star Wars is another one that has lasted. I mean, it's not thousands of years old, sure, but it touches people on such a deeper level than just a film that's entertaining does. And I think because there are deeper truths in the way
especially for geeks,
the Force, and and that resonates with people because it's touching upon some deeper truth. So yeah, I'm really excited to
okay, I'll send you that link. But one of the points I made was that, okay, Yoda talks about the importance of keeping equanimity. Okay. So he talks about the importance of keeping equanimity, but he says that equanimity is not the end result. Okay. So what he means by that in Star Wars is that, you need to be balanced. You need to have that equanimity when good things happen to you and when bad things happen to you. Okay. You don't get carried away. When good things happen, you feel super happy. And then when bad things happen, you feel super sad. You need to keep your equanimity. Now, it doesn't mean being a robot. It means, you feel the happiness, but it's not going to last. That's what equanimity is. Meaning the next day you hurt yourself, let's say, you don't start saying to yourself, oh, yesterday was such a great day. And now look, I'm hurt. I can't move my leg. I can't do this. I can't do that. So that's what it means, keeping your equanimity. If you fall sick the next day, take it as it comes, because some days you feel fit, some days you're sick. That's how life is. So that's what it means. But having that balanced state of mind, that's not the final goal. That's what Yoda says in Star Wars. And what he means by that is, let's say you practice mindfulness for a few years, and you are able to have that equanimity state when good things happen, when bad things happen. So is that what enlightenment is, let's say? Is that the end result? I'm not that carried away by things now. So I'm at a certain level now. It's good. I have better control, let's say, on my life and my emotions and all that. Maybe, I'm good at that now. It's not about this. You can have equanimity, but the end goal is living with honor. So having a life where the way you conduct yourself, you do it in a virtuous way. And that's why the Jedis, they fight against injustice, right? They're trying to do the right thing. That's why the Buddhists, if they have their meditation practice, which allows them to keep that equanimity, but even if you have that Zen state of mind throughout your day, you have the Eightfold Path, which you try to perfect every day. You have the 10 precepts which you vow to follow your whole life if you intend to become a monk. So you have all those things, because just keeping the equanimity is not enough. You need to live a life where when you die, you're actually proud of. You did your best to perfect yourself and live a life where it was worth living it. You're not just
Yeah.
dying and randomly,
Mm,
So that's what Yoda meant.
that's cool. That's very cool. Now, wait, does this all tie back to the what's next? Because that's how we started explaining that, but I'm not sure if you covered what the old story says about that, because I am
Yeah.
really curious. I don't
The
want
Buddha
to
was
forget
trying to
that.
understand, yeah, but where are you? I mean, you spat on me, but tell me more. What's the problem? I think that's what he was trying to
Okay.
understand. But the
Yeah.
guy was just angry, and it actually consolidates your point. The guy was so angry that he didn't have an answer, so he moved out.
Interesting.
Sometimes we are so angry, and in that state of mind, we don't know why we're angry.
So
And
that's true.
exactly your point. You ask someone, yeah, but why are you so angry? I'm just angry. I'm mad. But why?
Yeah.
Getting that answer is tricky. And
Or it's like because you left your socks on the floor. I don't know. That's not a personal example, but I hear people talk about that stuff, and it's like, okay, well, is getting angry a solution to that? Like I guess it's almost sometimes you can want to intimidate someone, and maybe that's what that guy was trying to do, intimidate the Buddha to like stop doing what he's doing because he's angry. But it doesn't really. I don't think that usually works that way. So it is really more of just I'm angry because I'm angry. I think a lot of times, like there isn't a strategy behind being angry
yeah, and I
as
would say
much as
that ignorance creates anger too,
which is
because
the original ignorance we talked about last time, which is ignorance of your true nature,
of your true nature, yeah.
of your real
But in
nature.
this case, ignorance of who the Buddha is, because the guy didn't know. He probably heard something and he was super angry. So he
That's a
doesn't
good
he doesn't
point.
know.
Ignorance and like a misunderstanding of what's going on or what something is or means. That's
And
interesting.
I would like to elaborate on that. Usually when you have like bad misunderstanding, let's say between two people, when it goes really bad. It goes really bad when one of the people is not trying to understand the other one's point of view. You're so stuck into what you think is the case that you don't want to explore the other person's point of view. And it's sad, but I've seen like people stop talking to each other, and very intelligent people. I don't know how much you know about, for example, Sam Harris and Brett Weinstein. I don't know whether you've heard about them. One of them is an evolutionary biologist, and Sam Harris is a neuroscientist. So two amazing guys, very intelligent, and they just had a misunderstanding about a topic, and they are not talking to each other now. But they used to be great friends.
Oh,
I mean, you can Google and check their profiles, but very intelligent people, great minds, I would say. But then they just had an argument about the outbreak of coronavirus, and they have different opinions. But now they're not talking to each other. I mean, that's just an example of a friendship dying because of two people having very strong viewpoints about a certain thing. I mean, disagreeing is actually something essential, isn't it? You can't just stop talking to someone because you disagree about something, I would say.
True.
You can't meet someone who agrees with you. Actually, it's boring if you do.
All right. Yeah, that's
grow,
true.
actually.
That's a good point. No, and what you're saying too about like not being able to, not wanting to see another person's point of view or not being interested in that really is such a root for so many like arguments and strong emotions and stuff like that. And if someone murders your family, okay, I can see why it's difficult to see their point of view. So there are extremes where it's like, but I feel like the Buddha, or like the most enlightened being amongst us, could potentially see that person's point of view and even have compassion on that person and understand that, like, that this was, or whatever, come to some kind of a inner resolution or peaceful connect, or like relationship with that person, even after something that, that extreme. But on smaller levels, it can be like people won't even want to agree about, I don't know, very small things. I'm not coming up with an example, but yeah, people argue about all sorts of things. And I think a lot of it comes down to what you said about not being interested in seeing each other's perspectives or understanding it, even if you disagree. But just to say, oh, okay, I could see how that would be. I can see how you could take that position, even if I don't take that position, or I don't see things the same way or believe the things that you believe in order to make that true. Like, okay, if you believe those things, all right, yeah, I see why you would have done that, or why you said that, or why you think this. So it's such a fundamental practice.
Exactly. I mean, you can't hold on to your beliefs in such an extreme way that you downplay the beliefs of everyone else.
Yeah, that's a good.
Like for example, okay, we can have many examples. Let's say we take the vaccination itself. There are people against vaccines. Okay, there are people for vaccines. I would look at it from a mathematical point of view purely, right? I would just look at numbers. So the odds of someone dying from corona without vaccination are much higher, okay, compared to the odds of someone dying. So if you take the vaccine, the probability that you die is 1/4 than the probability. Sorry. So if you take the vaccine, the probability that you die is a probability, let's say X. Okay. The probability that you die from corona if you don't take the vaccine is 4X. So it's 4 times more, let's say. Okay. So that's what the maths say. So if someone asks me, are you pro-vaccine or you're not pro-vaccine and stuff like that, I would just code the numbers.
Okay.
Right? Now, I know people who are totally against vaccination for whatever reason. Okay. And now I have very intelligent friends who talk to me and tell me that, okay, so I tell them that, people died because of corona and they were not vaccinated. Actually, I'm remembering a conversation I had with a friend. I forgot the numbers, but I'll just lay out the scenario to you.
Okay.
So the anti-vaccine movement, okay, which happened since the outbreak of corona, let's say, after 2019. So the anti-vaccine movement was responsible for the death of around 40% of the population, something like that, statistically. So the anti-vaccine movement is a group of people convincing others not to have vaccines because it's not good for their health. And they are responsible for 40% of people dying amongst the total number of deaths, let's say, which is huge, actually. It's quite big. And then I had a friend very intelligent guy, who told me that, the person would have died. I mean, the person might have died anyway, even if they were vaccinated. Then I said, no, we shouldn't have statements like that. Then I quoted the numbers, So if someone is vaccinated, these are the odds of the person dying. If someone is not vaccinated, these are the odds. And this is purely stats. It's not my opinion. Okay, I'm not accepting or rejecting any. I don't have an opinion on that. Okay, that's what the stats tell you. And then the person said, "Oh, okay, I didn't know about that." So we form opinions and we stick to that because of a certain belief we have, let's say, about something. And we just need to open up. And I think the Buddha's attempt was trying to understand, okay, so what next? Okay, you spat on me, yeah, but what's really troubling you, man? I think that's what he was trying to get at. And the story doesn't end there actually. It's a very long story when you think about it.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So the person who spat on the Buddha goes home, totally confused.
Okay.
He doesn't sleep. Rolls on the bed, trying to think, who's that guy? Every person I've abused before, let's say verbally, they either fought me back or they ran away, but no one actually questioned me on my behavior. So he was totally confused, and then he actually ended up regretting his act. And the next day he goes to see the Buddha. He goes to see him, and then he asks for forgiveness and says that I shouldn't have reacted the way I reacted, and I'm so sorry for that. So he throws himself to his feet. Okay, that's how the story is. We don't know whether it really happened like that. So let's just focus on the essentials. So he asks for forgiveness, basically. And then the Buddha says, what next? Again, that's how Zen stories are also. Just like the other story where he keeps saying, is that so? It keeps repeating. And then the Buddha was trying to understand, actually. And the person said, you really need to forgive me. I can't live with that burden. Okay, that I've insulted you like that. Then the Buddha does something which shocks everyone. Okay, everyone present. He said, I can't forgive you. And everyone was like, the Buddha said that, the enlightened person who has so much compassion and forgives everyone. How could the Buddha say that? He can't forgive someone, everyone was shocked, and they were taken back, totally confused. I mean, is that a new kind of teaching now? So suddenly the Buddha is badass now. He doesn't forgive. So everyone was taken back. And then, in his own way, he comes up with another piece of wisdom at another level. So then he explains to the person, he says, okay, look, I can't forgive you because what happened yesterday happened between another version of Buddha and another version of you. Okay? And after 24 hours, I'm no longer the same Buddha. And you're no longer the same person, because yesterday the person who came insulted me. Today the person who came is asking for forgiveness. These are two different people. And I can't forgive someone who's totally changed. And even me, I changed. So let's just sit down and talk about something else. So that's what the Buddha said. And once again, wisdom at just another level. It just makes you rethink, everything, the way we behave, the way we think. Sometimes when I read those stuff, I just think, man, we're dumb, We've got a way to go. No, that's how I feel when I read scriptures and I discuss with my team.
That's the moral of the story. I'm pretty sure that's how you're supposed to feel. Man, I'm dumb. Very humble. It's good. It's humbling.
And
that's so funny.
That's the story. And there's so much to learn. I don't know which piece to take and to elaborate on.
Yeah.
Every inch of it is just awesome.
No, there's a deep one. We might have to revisit it in the future, because I think we could talk a lot more about it. But I do want to get into the first precept, because I'm curious about that. Not precept, the first of the Eightfold Path. Sorry.
Exactly. So I chose this story because the first, among the 8 things, one of the things we need to, because it's not like in a hierarchy or in order of importance. They're all important. All right.
Because that's why it's like in a wheel.
It turns, right? So each one becomes important, let's say, as it turns.
As it turns.
That's a nice way of looking at it. I never thought about it.
Love it.
So yeah, the one of the aspects of the Eightfold Path is the right speech,
Okay.
the way you speak. And I
Hmm.
chose this story because it shows you how you can actually speak in a constructive way, even in adversity, like extreme adversity, man. He spat on the Buddha. So that's, it's not easy to behave, let's say, in this context, but I think they are very good examples of very good behavior. I mean, the way you speak, the way you conduct yourself.
Yeah.
And we usually talk about it among Buddhists. The Eightfold Path is not something you learn in a crash course and it. It's something you perfect every day.
Okay.
And it takes a lifetime. I mean, some Zen people say that. Not Zen people, some Buddhists will say it will take you many births to perfect it, because they have that notion of rebirth.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a lifetime of practice perfecting the way you speak. But the Buddha is very clear about what's bad speech, okay, which is not in the story, but I think the story laid out a very good foundation of what we're going to discuss. So there are things we should avoid, which is very clear in the scriptures. And one of the things is gossiping.
That's so interesting. It's such a ubiquitous within spiritual traditions. I know in the Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition, gossiping is also considered a very serious thing not to do. It's very,
That's cool.
so it's interesting that on the Eastern side of
It's
things,
like
it's also,
universal wisdom, right?
yeah. So that's so intriguing that so okay, I'm curious what you, because one thing also I've tried to stick by that, and I've run into situations where someone is talking about someone else who isn't present. So that would be like the most, but like if they're just talking neutrally about them, that's not gossip, is it? Or if you're telling, oh, I met my friend, this is, I met this person at that place, and we went to college together, or whatever. Like that's not gossip. That's just them telling a story or sharing information about.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what is it that makes something gossip? That's what I would wonder. What
yeah.
you, if
Yeah,
there's
I think it's not as hard as we think it is. Let's say when you're talking about someone and your intent is not clear, you want to bring that person down in the storytelling. That's not cool.
Okay. And it's interesting because it comes back to the intent.
It comes back
So
to
the
intent.
same story told with one intent would be gossip, and the same story told with a different intent could be like educational, or like teaching, or just sharing something about your life, sharing something intimate, even if it's the same exact, telling the same series of events or whatever. Or talking about the same thing or person. Okay, that's interesting. I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But even this gets challenged in some situations, because some people would take it too seriously. Now that aspect, I mean, you can't talk bad about someone. Then what happens if someone is abusive and you never warn people about it? Do you let them get into contact with someone who will take advantage of them? That's not good either. So there are cases where you need to warn people about someone else. And I've done it too.
But then it's
very
your
rarely
intent is
done
not
it.
your intent is not to take the other person down or to hurt the other person's reputation, or put yourself above them, but it's actually to protect someone. That's your intention, to tell
I would
about
just
this
say,
person.
just be careful of that person without giving details. This person did this. No.
Oh, okay.
I won't do that. I would just say, no, just be careful.
Yeah.
And the other person, if the person trusts me, then will say, if Geerish told me that, it means there is something. So the person also won't ask me, can you tell me what really happened? Then it becomes gossiping. But
Okay, interesting.
I've done it, I've done it. Like, for example, in my circle, let's say, sometimes people ask me for recommendation. Would you recommend that person for what? For, let's say, for a workshop? I would say yes. Yeah, this person is trustworthy because they're asking for my recommendation. Now, let's say I learn about person X who did something very bad to someone else. Or let's say in my conversation, I noticed something not clear about someone. Then I would say, I no longer recommend that person. Just brief like that. Something brief like that without giving details, without bringing the person down. I would just say, no, I no longer recommend that person. So finished. One line. Because I think it's your duty also to protect people from getting manipulated and abused, let's say.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's not correct either.
Is that also, would that be part of the right speech aspect of the Eightfold Path? To use your speech for...
It's a good test of your own integrity, because you need to communicate that in a way that there is no trace of you feeling above the other person, like I'm the virtuous guy, so don't trust that person. That person is like this. No, you need to really communicate it in a very neutral way, so that it's beneficial for other people. You're trying to protect other people. Yeah. And in no way you're trying to elevate you and say you are the virtuous person, the other person is not. Okay. So it's a sort of test for the person when you're trying to have the right speech, because we get trapped in that sometimes. Spiritual people, like, I always need to speak in a nice way and this is the right speech. No, I think Sophia mentioned it in one of our talks, that sometimes you need to say no. Right? So does that make you bad? Is that wrong speech? No. Sometimes you do need to say no. Without being abusive. Like, even in a verbal conflict, if I see that the other person is just overdoing it and just trying to, stab, I would just say thank you and I'll move out. So yeah, so it has to stop. You can't just be nice sometimes.
So how then do you know what is meant? Like, what is the word right? Because that's a very
subjective,
broad word, or very it's ambiguous. So what is right speech? So no gossiping is like kind of a more solid thing. Yeah. But is there more to like what right means?
Yeah, let's break it down. Let's break it down. So
I'd be curious, like, this is another time when I'd be curious what the Sanskrit or the original word is for right. Like what the
it was very clear. So gossip is mentioned very clearly. Okay. You can't translate it wrongly. Okay. Sure. It's mentioned no gossiping. Yeah. Okay. No gossiping, no talking behind someone's back. No talk whereby you give like a sort of importance to yourself. Okay. So no speech whereby you claim to be the enlightened one. That's it. Because if you look at the stories of the Buddha, at no point he mentioned about being the guru or the enlightened being. He's a very down-to-earth guy, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he is different. That's for sure. But not in a way that like you said, where he's saying things about how he's above or enlightened or
and this is wisdom when you think about it. The more you become wise, the more you become simple, and the more you realize that there are so many things you don't know. And once you realize this, then the ego sort of crashes. Like, what are you really proud of? There are so many things you don't know. Right? So and being dumb, let's say, like being the person who doesn't know, is beautiful in a way that you're always trying to know. Like, if you think that, okay, my knowledge of, let's say, Buddhism is more than the average person, I know so much, it kind of stops the way you think, and the
Okay.
progress you can potentially make, right? And this can be applied to so many different things in life. So thinking you actually don't know makes you want to know more the whole time. So you want to explore,
True.
you want to test this hypothesis, you want to test that, and then that's
True.
how you learn more.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to. That makes sense.
So having a sign of arrogance in the way you
Okay.
conduct yourself, in the way you speak, let's say, that's wrong speech again.
Okay. Now, one thing that's interesting is I don't think that I'm asking, but always telling the truth doesn't necessarily seem to be part of right speech, because I'm thinking back at the story where he didn't lie, so he didn't actually say anything that was untrue. But when the Zen monk in the story from one of our previous sessions, he was accused of being, this person like sleeping with this woman and having this baby and stuff. He never clarified. He wasn't trying to be like, well, the truth is, this. So that's interesting. What are your thoughts around like truth and lying and right speech?
I do that the whole time. I never speak the truth totally.
Oh, interesting. But then is it okay to lie sometimes?
That's a very tricky one. I won't say no. I won't say I never lie. I never speak the total truth, because sometimes knowing some truth for, let's say, for an individual, it's not going to be helpful. So the Buddha is clear about this. So the way you speak should be healthy and helpful.
Okay.
Now, I have trouble to apply that to myself, because the way I speak to myself can be very harsh. But that's because I can't take it. You see, so I like being harsh to myself, and I like pushing myself. I like being tough. But that's not necessarily good for everyone. Some people can't hear things, directly. It will just destroy them. So I would still communicate the same thing, but not in a less direct way, and kind of massage it into a conversation to still communicate the same thing. And I do that a lot because I usually have to train people when they come to work, since I'm in charge of them. So you need to tell people what they need to work on, but you can't do that in a very direct way. Like you're bad at that, you need to do this and that. No, you need to do it in a way so that it's constructive, so that they do get the message, but it's not too direct, so that it breaks their ego. There's a lot of emphasis on not having ego, because there's that big thing on like, you don't need to have an ego. And even in Buddhism, you have that concept of no self, but actually you do need to have an ego. Because if you don't have an ego, then anyone can tell you anything and you'll just accept it. Sometimes there are some things you don't need to accept. So you need to have enough ego. And Suzuki, who was a Zen master, he used to say that you need to have enough ego so that when you're crossing the road, a car doesn't hit you and you die. So he says it in a joking way, but the idea is that you need to have enough ego, because when you don't, then you get manipulated. That's another
I've
scary
heard a
thing.
story like that. So there is some camp of Buddhism, which I feel like, I don't know where I heard the story, but something about like the Buddhist master who saw tiger cubs starving, and so he cut off his arm and gave it to him without like a second thought, because he was that like detached from self. Which sure, you could do that, but you could only do that like once or twice. Like, and you might, and then what about your life compared to the tiger cubs? I don't know. So practically though, what you're saying obviously makes total sense. Like or what this Suzuki, the Zen master Suzuki, says about
that's
having
where,
enough of an ego to not.
That's where Zen differs from traditional Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism, where there's that emphasis on praying and God, and there's there's that mysticism, you know, in the Buddhist practice, whereas Zen guys, they are very down to earth, they are very realistic. Actually, they are educated. Now, I'm not saying the other branches are not educated. Sorry if it comes across like that. Zen people read a lot of literature, they write a lot, they discuss a lot. I mean, it's in Zen that we, like, for example, my lineage, we believe in bringing Zen to the world, right? So the previous Zen masters, like my own teacher, he's married and he has kids. He's a Zen priest, but as a priest, he has kids, right? So the Japanese lineage is very open, and they have kids. They drink wine from time to time. They have sex. They, you know, they are normal guys, but in moderation, everything.
It's balanced.
And then you have the traditional Buddhist people, whereby they say no celibacy, no alcohol, no woman. You know, it's like this. It's very traditional, but I mean, the Zen practice is actually bring it in our own life, and we don't need to live in a temple on a mountain to practice Zen. We practice Zen in our lives. When I'm talking to you right now, when I'm going to work, I live my Zen practice in my life. So we are a different lineage, but usually we have that discussion among Buddhists. We do need the temples and the monasteries and all that. It's a very important part of the tradition. You know, sometimes you need to be cut off from the world and have a retreat and find yourself again. But we don't believe in leaving the world and going there and trying to get enlightened. This is not enlightenment. Enlightenment is when you bring it to your life. It's in the chaos of life. So that's how Zen is different from traditional Buddhism, let's say.
Yeah, I come from an Islamic background, and something in the Quran says that monasticism was not something like prescribed by God. That's like a creation of man. That like you're meant to live your faith within the actual world, like, you know, interacting with people. And there's that concept of balance, like spending time on the spiritual aspects and spending time on the physical aspects, and, you know, having a job, having a family, those kind of things, contributing to society, working, you know. So it's interesting to see that there's some that like that idea is also in, how is that?
I was saying there's a sort of similarity again.
There's, it's interesting. And it's also interesting too that most spiritual traditions or religious traditions at least have like some kind of monastic side of things, a lot of them. So it's interesting that does end up, and I guess it makes sense, like if you're saying, okay, this is the most important thing in life, then like, okay, I should just dedicate 100% of my life just to that thing. So it's a logical thing. And then it's like, okay, how do you do that? Well, we all just go away and do that by ourselves. But one thing that is more challenging, I think, even, is to achieve enlightenment or a high spiritual level of being, practice, however you want to look at that, psychological, spiritual, mental, within the world itself, which is going to challenge you so much more than being in an idyllic, you know, like in nature, no, you know, friends or family or relationships to challenge you, no job to struggle with, that, like, you know, so yeah, it's interesting. It's cool.
It is, and once again we have that discussion from time to time. The Zen way is much harder because you are, but I think it's the most inspiring thing as well. I mean, I'm obviously biased as a Zen guy, you know.
Sure.
But
it's good to admit our biases. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't be unbiased. I'm going
to be aware of them at least.
I'm aware of that. But it's the hardest thing. I mean, I could have easily chosen to isolate myself and be that Buddhist who lives on his own, you know, free of distraction. But you choose to have a normal life, have that challenge of having a wife, having a kid, having a professional career, which is very demanding, and at the same time be that Zen guy who is detached, who has that equanimity, and has that peace of mind. But when you're at work, it's all about numbers. It's all about being competitive. If you see me on a football pitch, you won't recognize me. I lose all my Zen. I would make that player man mark the other person, don't give the person space, be aggressive. It's all about winning. So it's all aspects of yourself. It's what the situation demands. Like, a lot of the samurais, they were Zen people, but when they had to fight, they fought, isn't it? So it's not just about being in that state of which we call samadhi, where you are, where you feel enlightened and nothing can affect you. You do feel that from time to time. But I mean, just today I was talking to my teacher when we were having that discussion about, what is really reality and what is accepting reality. And my teacher was saying that, when you're sad, you're sad. And this is part of reality. We shouldn't say that, no, I'm no longer in contact with reality. That's why I'm sad, because that's what some schools teach. I'm angry now. Oh, I've moved out of reality. That's why I'm angry. It's not a natural state. Some schools teach you to always be in a state of equanimity, untouched by anything. No, but that's like being a robot. So when you're sad, when you're angry, it's all part of being enlightened. I mean, it's cool. You let yourself feel those things, but you don't let yourself get carried away when you're angry and do things you should not be doing. But you allow yourself to feel angry. I think you were mentioning that because I did like a short video on that once. You allow yourself to feel those things. If tears fall, if tears roll down your cheeks, you let them come. I mean, even the Buddha, when his disciples were killed in when there was war at that time, he was depressed for weeks. So the enlightened being got depressed because his people was dying. So it's just normal, And sometimes we have too much high standard from ourselves, like, why am I feeling so sad or angry? I'm a spiritual person, I can't allow myself to be broken. But no, I mean, even being broken, it's fine. You allow yourself to be broken. Actually, the funny thing is that the more you practice, then it doesn't make you, I don't know where people get that idea from. A lot of people come across and tell me that, you never show emotions, and it's as if nothing can happen to you. But actually, I end up thinking that I feel more than average people. It's just that I don't go on the dark side, like in Star Wars, where I don't let that anger eat me, but I do get angry at times. But allow myself to feel it, but I won't fight someone when I'm angry. I just know it's not the right thing to do, but it doesn't mean I don't feel it. I just don't react on it. So you're not trying to control. That's the whole point, I think. You're not trying to control. But I think what happens is your awareness increases the more you practice. So it doesn't make you numb. It doesn't create a sort of numbness. You don't become someone who is less emotional, let's say. Actually, there's a reverse. You become more open. So you can easily get your heart broken many times when you're a Zen guy, because you always have an open heart towards people most of the time. Okay. So, but you just become more aware, and you're more aware of your feelings. So you cope better, and you can actually catch how people feel easily also, because you're open, you're not trying to restrict. So you see the things in people, like the small gestures when someone is trying to control something, when someone is being genuine, when it's all the facade, it's fake. You see those things also. So
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. I can see how that once you've started, it's almost about clarity. Like you
you
become
see
more
clearly.
clear, you can see yourself more clearly, so you can see others more clearly. It's not about changing things as much as seeing things more clearly or understanding. Does that feel accurate? That's what I was kind of getting.
There's nothing extraordinary in being enlightened. It's just seeing things clearly. And I'm just going to quote the Matrix. Sometimes when you see the truth, the eyes hurt. That's what happened to Neo the first time he realized that he has been in the Matrix. So he tells Morpheus, I think that, my eyes are hurting. And then they tell him that, yeah, it's because you're seeing the truth for the first time. That's why your eyes are hurting. So there are moments where it's hard to take, but yeah, you see truth the way it is.
That's fair.
And that's it. It's like being honest with how you're feeling and how you're communicating, I would say.
Yeah. So I have two thoughts about right speech. If we can, can I switch things a little bit?
Yeah.
So one thing is about lying, because when we were talking about it, I had the thought, I was like, well, I mean, let's say there are some bandits chasing an innocent person, a helpless defensive, and the person runs by you, you're in a forest and the path splits and you're at the split and they go right. Then the bandits come and say, which way did the person go?
Yeah.
I think it would make sense to say left, even though that would be a lie.
Yeah.
But I think it feels to me like it would be more of right speech to use your speech to protect this person, even if it's a lie.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that? Or
you would either lie and give the wrong direction so that you save the lives of the people, or you will tell another truth and say, I didn't see anyone. You would still lie. Okay. You would lie in both cases, I would say.
Sure. But so then what makes, like, though, I guess it's the intention.
It's the intent again.
I'm guessing the other precepts also will come. Once we know the other precepts, it'll be clear of right speech, because right speech will probably, not the precepts, I got to stop calling that, the other aspects of the Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
Then right speech should support those ones.
Exactly. So it will be interesting as we continue the discussion. When we explore something else, then you say, we discussed that before. So you'll see the links.
That they're interconnected. Okay, exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And so the other thing, so I was looking at my notes, and so far I have like, there's no gossiping, like, and then no like arrogance or saying things to increase your self-importance, or like claiming to be, better.
I'll just add something. Since you talk about no arrogance, I would say don't view, in your speech, never think that you're less than others too. That's another extreme we should avoid.
Okay, so okay. That actually kind of solidifies almost what I was saying, what I was thinking looking at these, is that because the gossiping is putting someone else down, and then the arrogance is putting yourself up. And so it comes back to this equanimity, and then so don't put yourself down either. There's that balance in the middle, that equanimity. And so I also wonder if right speech would also be, don't praise other people, don't put other people up, or like talk like they're better than you or better than anyone else. I wonder if that, because that seems like something that's nice to do. But if this, if it's all about kind of staying in that equal, in coaching, actually, that's one of the things that in like life coaching is to keep an equal to position, where you're not less than or higher than each other. You communicate to people as you're on the same level, as equal. So what do you think?
I had a discussion about that with my teacher too.
Okay.
And there are some schools, when I say schools, it means Buddhist schools, let's say, where the hierarchy is very important. So you have the master, the Roshi, and then you have the disciple. and
Okay.
the master knows everything, you know.
Okay.
And this usually leads to sort of abuse, which we do see in certain cults, or
Mm.
I mean, even in the Buddhist circles, you have cases where there is abuse on the students.
Mm.
Not just in Buddhism, but it's in many religions. Once you have that
Sure.
hierarchy, and the kind of master or teacher, whatever you want to call the person, actually has a sort of control on the students, then it can lead to bad
Fair enough.
areas, let's say. But the
Yeah.
way we look at it in Zen is that, okay, what my master usually likes saying is that he considers himself to be like a friend on the path.
Okay. Okay. That's cool.
So when you talk to him, it's as if you're talking to a friend. I mean, with respect,
Mm.
but you don't see that hierarchy. And that's my approach too when I talk to my students or to people who are asking me for
Cool.
advice. I don't pretend to be the, you know, I'm way above everyone else, or I'm more enlightened or stuff like that. Just, yeah, we're just friends on the path and we're learning. And we do need to recognize that some people know more than us,
Mm.
but we shouldn't put that person on like, you know, the person is there and I'm here like
Sure.
untouchable, you know, the
Mm.
whatever.
Because like you actually, now that makes sense. If you put someone higher, that's putting you lower at the same time, which is what you were
Yeah.
saying. That's the other extreme. So yeah,
Yes.
that makes a lot of sense.
That-
People are
that's why-
different. Some people have more skills, and you recognize that, you know, and appreciate that, or more knowledge, whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't ultimately make them better or worse. Like a newborn child, just because it doesn't know anything, it can't even walk, or it doesn't make it like less than, like, you know, on a fundamental level, like it's to be looked down upon because it can't even walk, and look at me, I can run, you know, like that's so it's kind of the same thing. We're just on different places in the path, different
exactly.
levels.
We need to balance that. So we need to recognize that some people may be better than us, and we learn from it, and it's good to be humble, but never treat someone way beyond you as if the person is way beyond anyone else, and that kind of diminishing you also, that's not good. And that disbalance is something which is not appropriate even in relationships, let's say, whether it's in friendships or romantic relationships. If one person is more important than the other one, that causes a disbalance, which at some point will not work out.
So, I believe it.
Once again, that's a lesson in itself. Shams, we've talked quite a lot.
Have we? Okay. Do you have any last parting words on right speech then before we wrap up? Because that was a great conversation.
I would say right speech would be, okay, speaking from the heart, whereby you know that the intent is good for others and yourself at the same time. And usually others and you, it's the same thing. And that's another topic on its own, but I would say it all comes down to that. If we really kind of get everything in a concentrated line or sentence, it's this. So
like
it all comes back to
from the heart with a good intention for all.
Exactly. We can't go wrong there if we stick to this.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for another beautiful conversation as always.
Thanks to you, Shams. Did you notice there was no interference today? Like
the
internet, everything was just smooth.
Very smooth. Is right internet one of the eight? One of the eight? Because if so, we've mastered that. We can go
in the technological era. I would say yes. It's one
that
of
would be a funny article or video or something. The technological eightfold path. Right internet, right battery. Anyways, we'll save that for. We should have a comedy podcast one time, and we'll explore that. All right, my friend.
Thanks, Shams.
Beautiful. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, see you. Bye-bye.